and welcome to Unicity channel every Tuesday, 8 p.m. We will be catching up with global leaders, industry heads, finding out what makes them tick and why specifically they chose Unicity. Our guest for today is from Los Angeles, California, Dr. Erin Glynn. Welcome, Doctor. Dr. Erin Glynn was leading the scientific affairs function within the R&D for a large direct selling company. Erin says she was drawn to caliber of science behind Unicity's amazing products and the strong scientific focus the company promotes. She has extensive experience in nutritional product development, clinical trials, and scientific substantiation. Dr. Glynn completed her PhD at the University of Texas Medical Branch. Dr. Glynn has also authored over 25 scientific journals. We are excited and curious to know more about Unimate tonight. Dr. Erin, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Lily. It's so nice to be here with you. Thank you for having me.
Welcome. Our pleasure to have you.
Great. Okay. Yes. Well, like Lily said, tonight I will be talking to you about Unimate, but also just generally on the topic of optimizing physical energy, which I think for a lot of us is an important topic that we want to learn more about. So today we will be talking about optimizing physical energy, but I know that you've already heard several great talks from some of the other trainers this month on mental energy and activating your brain and stress. And in fact, all of these are related to physical energy. It's actually quite difficult to separate them sometimes because mental fatigue and stress can contribute to physical fatigue and vice versa. So we may feel mentally alert, but if we're physically tired, this is likely like in an instance where we are physically tired, but we take caffeine. So we might feel physically alert for a little bit, but this is probably short-lived. And alternatively, we might feel physically like we have energy, but we're not able to focus. So the mental energy is not there. And this is a case where maybe it leads to procrastination, right? If you have a lot of physical energy, but you don't have focus, you might do tasks that you wouldn't otherwise do, like decide that you need to go clean that room or clean out the drawer or run an errand when you should really be focusing on a certain task. So our mental and physical energy is intertwined. And today we're going to focus on factors that can influence physical energy and how to optimize them. But I think you'll notice a lot of overlap between the two. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's okay for us to have strategies that work for both physical and mental energy. So what are some of the key influencers of physical energy? We will touch on each of these in the coming slides, but as you can imagine, one of the biggest factors of physical energy is what you feed your body, what you're putting into your body, your diet. This is one of the greatest influences. And what you're eating, your diet influences what we call nutrient status. So if you are low or deficient in certain nutrients, certain vitamins, minerals, this can influence your energy status as well. People who are more physically active tend to feel more energized. So moving your body increases things like blood flow, and this brings energy to your body and your mind. And there are really countless studies, excuse me, on the effects of physical energy on mental health and well-being. And an obvious contributor to energy is sleep. But there are a few tips that I'll share with you today that maybe you didn't know about how to optimize your sleep for physical energy. Another factor that we have are both stimulants like caffeine and depressants like alcohol. And use of these can greatly influence your energy level as well. So it's important when we think about caffeine or stimulants to optimize how much of that you're taking, when you're taking it, and minimize your alcohol consumption to optimize your energy. Stress is also a major contributor. We mentioned this both for mental and physical energy. So if you're stressed initially, like acutely, that might influence your mental energy, right? But over time, if you're what we call chronically stressed, this can contribute to a decline in physical energy because you have elevated levels of hormones like cortisol, which really can wreak havoc on your body's systems. And so over time, if we're chronically stressed, you'll start to see that impact physical energy. And lastly, the amount of screen time that we're getting in today's world can affect our energy. I think people don't think about this one a whole lot, but our screens give off a specific wavelength of light called blue light. And blue light can interfere with the sleep hormone that's called melatonin. So if you're getting a lot of screen time right before you go to bed, that can inhibit the release of the hormone that tells your body it's time to go to sleep. And so we want to make sure that we're minimizing screen time, especially before bed, so that that blue light is not interfering with our normal sleep patterns. So there are really two distinctions when we talk about energy. From a nutritionist standpoint, we think about energy in the form of food, energy from the calories that we consume in food. And this energy is in the form of kilocalories. Kilocalories, we say in the United States, other places they call it kilojoules. But this is just the unit of measure of energy from food. And this is the energy that our body takes and converts to energy that our body can use. It's called ATP. So this is what we mean when we talk about actual energy for the body. We're talking about food and nutrients that provide that energy in the form of ATP to our bodies. But another way people think about energy is really more about feeling stimulated. So stimulation is something that occurs in the brain and the central nervous system, but it's not actually providing your body physical energy. So examples of stimulants would be things like the caffeine found in coffee and other beverages, and compounds that we'll talk about today like theobromine and L-theanine. So stimulation may make you feel more energized when you drink that morning cup of coffee, or as we're going to talk about today, maybe Unimate. You'll feel more energized, but these compounds aren't giving you physical energy. So that's just a distinction I wanted to make quickly. Okay, so we know that food provides us nutrients, the calories that we need for that physical energy. And here we show the three main types of nutrients found in food. These are called macronutrients, and they are carbohydrates, or carbs for short, fats, and protein. And those first two things, carbohydrates and fats, are the main sources of energy for our body. Now here I show a picture of what we would consider bad carbohydrates, but please note that not all carbohydrates are bad. There are certainly healthy carbohydrates, what we call complex carbohydrates. But in today's diets, a lot of times when people consume carbohydrates, we're consuming the wrong kind, what we call simple carbohydrates, things that are kind of high in sugar or simple sugars. So other good examples of carbohydrates include fruits, vegetables, and whole grains. Okay, fats similarly can be both healthy or unhealthy. So we want to focus on what we call mono and polyunsaturated fats. And these are found in natural things that you think of as healthy fats, avocados and vegetable oils. Whereas the unhealthy fats, these are called saturated fats and trans fats. These are found in processed foods and things like fatty cuts of meat. The third category, protein, is what's found in things like fish and eggs, meat, nuts, seeds, legumes. And protein is really important for building and repairing in your body. But we don't, for the most part, use protein as energy. Okay, so carbohydrates and fats are energy. Protein is really for rebuilding and maintaining muscle mass. So we're not going to spend a ton of time on the nutrition aspect today, but I think we all know that making healthy choices is important for healthy and sustained physical energy. What I do want to focus on briefly in terms of utilizing your diet to optimize physical energy are Unicity's nutrition principles. And these are, first, control carbs. Second, fuel with fat. And third, prioritize protein. So how would following these principles optimize your physical energy? Well, it's pretty simple. We mentioned that we get most of our energy from either carbohydrates or fats, right? Well, carbs, particularly those simple carbohydrates or refined carbohydrates, things that you think of that are high in sugar, these cause an increase in our blood sugar levels. So when you consume those simple carbohydrates, blood sugar increases. And on the other hand, consuming healthy fats does not spike your blood sugar levels. So when you have a choice between fueling your body with simple carbohydrates or fueling it with healthy fat, fueling with fat is certainly a better option. And then step 3, prioritize protein. We want to make sure that you're prioritizing protein not just at dinner when people maybe eat a heavier meal with maybe a meat of some kind, but throughout all of the day, throughout each eating occasion, even a snack. You want to think about, am I getting enough protein in this eating occasion? And one of the reasons that's important is it provides your body a steady stream of those building blocks of protein, amino acids, throughout the day. But protein is also the most satiating nutrient, macronutrient. So it helps you stay full longer in between meals. And this is particularly important if you're working to increase your muscle mass or you're working to control your food intake if you're on a diet or you're trying to lose weight. One nutrient we haven't mentioned yet is fiber. And fiber is a type of carbohydrate, but our bodies are not able to digest this carbohydrate, so it passes through our system unabsorbed. And one of the key benefits of fiber is that it can blunt the effect of those more simple carbohydrates on our blood glucose and insulin levels. So if you look at this graph on the left, when we eat a meal that's high in carbohydrates, let's say if you eat a breakfast that has maybe just a pastry and a cup of coffee that you put some sugar in, this is going to cause, the gray line here, a rapid increase in blood glucose. And this causes a release of the hormone insulin. Insulin is there to help that blood glucose, the sugar from your blood, get into your cells to be used for energy. So when we get that glucose spike, lots of insulin is released to help all of that sugar get into your cells. And what happens after that is, instead of glucose returning to a normal level or what we call baseline levels, sometimes we can get what we call the crash. So this is where your glucose goes really high and then it dips down quickly and goes below your baseline. And when blood sugar drops below our baseline, that can cause symptoms in us. It can make us feel tired, sluggish, mentally foggy, irritable, or even a little bit lightheaded. So you've probably experienced low blood sugar, maybe if you haven't eaten for a while, or if you ate a lot of sugar and then you're coming down on that crash. And so we want to try to avoid feeling like that. That can contribute to a loss of physical energy. So if you take a look at the right-hand side, in this example, we've taken fiber maybe 5 to 10 minutes before that same meal. And we still get a rise in blood sugar and insulin levels, but unlike the first side, this rise is what we call lower and slower. So you're not getting as high of an increase in either of them, and it kind of extends out a little bit longer. So really what you're doing is creating a more steady state of energy from those carbohydrates that you consumed. So you get a more sustained and controlled energy versus this roller coaster over here on the left side. And although we're not here to talk about fiber today, I love fiber, it's my favorite nutrient. And you know that Unicity offers a variety of fiber products to help you achieve more of this scenario on the right-hand side, where you're helping to control that glucose and insulin response into response to carbohydrates. Okay, we're not going to learn about this really complicated citric acid cycle today, but I put this here to talk about all of the nutrients that are involved in energy production in the body. So these are some of the key ones that I've listed here. Vitamins and minerals like iron, the B vitamins, vitamin C, magnesium, and zinc are all involved somewhere in this process, the citric acid cycle, or in the overall process of converting that food that we eat into energy or ATP that our bodies can use. And in addition, iron and the B vitamins, several of them, B6, 9, and 12, are involved in oxygen transport. So this is also very important to energy. If we're not getting enough oxygen flow through the body and good delivery of that oxygen, then you're going to feel tired. So you might know that if you are low in iron, if you're iron deficient, you can feel fatigue from that. So these are some key nutrients that you want to pay attention to. Make sure you're getting enough of, especially if you don't eat meat. That can lead to not getting enough B12 sometimes, or iron. So you just want to pay attention, and Unicity also offers a variety of vitamin and mineral supplementation that you can take a look at and make sure you think you're getting enough of those nutrients. That will help with your energy. Physical activity, we also mentioned, is very important to keeping your energy levels up. So it boosts energy. If you've ever been sitting in a chair for a long period of time and then you stand up and just move around a little bit, you notice how immediately you feel more alert, right? So this is one reason, is that it increases blood flow. So you're getting more oxygen to your tissues, to your brain. There are countless studies on the benefits of physical activity, even if you're not exercising incredibly hard, even if you're not losing weight, you still get brain and mental health benefits from physical activity. So it's recommended for pretty much anybody. It can obviously also help with weight management if that is your goal, but massive, massive reduction and prevention of diseases. And I'm not going to talk a lot about diseases today as we talk about the nutrition, but everybody should be trying to get physical activity about 30 minutes every single day, as much as you can, to reduce the risk of chronic diseases like obesity, diabetes, and cardiovascular disease. So you also get a muscle and bone benefit from physical activity anytime you're doing weight-bearing exercise. So a push-up, for example, you're kind of stressing the bones, and this causes them to get stronger. So you're strengthening bones, which is important as we age to help prevent osteoporosis. And physical activity maintains mobility. There's a phrase that they say, use it or lose it, right? And that's very true. If you're not keeping up with your mobility and moving, that's going to slowly decrease over time. So physical activity, incredibly important to physical energy. Okay, this one's kind of obvious, I think. If you're not getting good sleep, you're probably not going to have a lot of physical energy during the day. But for most of us, good sleep doesn't just happen by chance, all right? You have to have a plan for good sleep. You have to actively work on making the conditions good for good sleep. So what does this look like? Basically, it's a myth that adults can function on less than 7 hours of sleep very well anyway. Most of us require 7 to 9 hours of sleep per night. And a really good way to assess how long your body wants to sleep, if you have the ability to do this, is to start going to bed at the same time every night for about a week. And then spend a few days, again, don't miss work or anything, but spend a few days where you don't have to set an alarm if that's possible for you, okay? So go to bed at the same time and then don't set an alarm, and note when your body naturally wakes up for a few days over time. For me, that number is 9 hours, and I don't normally get 9 hours of sleep, but I know that that's my optimal number. If I could get that much, that's what my body wants. So that's a good way to find out your optimal number. And it's important to at least know where you should be on that continuum if you can. If you're constantly getting 7 hours of sleep and your body is wanting 8 or 9 hours, you should think about trying to incorporate a way into your schedule that you can get a little bit more sleep. Another important thing for good sleep is keeping the same schedule, and this includes weekends. A lot of people will go to bed at different times during the week versus the weekend, or wake up, it's many hours different. So you might wake up normally 7 a.m. during the week, but 10 a.m. on the weekends. And this is actually really bad for sleep quality. You want to try to keep that consistent, at least within about an hour of when you go to bed and when you wake up every day. You also, I mentioned the blue light that we get from our computer screens, TVs, iPads, things like that, phones. You want to avoid screen time 2 hours before you go to bed, because that blue light I mentioned will interfere with the natural secretion of melatonin. So it's going to interfere with your normal sleep cycles. If you can, try to avoid that. Try to maybe read a book instead, or do some other activity besides looking at your screens before bed. Caffeine is also something that can interfere with sleep. You know this. Most of us can't have a cup of coffee before we go to bed, because that caffeine is a stimulant and it's going to help keep us awake. So you want to try to avoid caffeine after about 2 p.m. or 1400 hours. I know that can be hard, but really it's going to help your physical energy overall if you're getting better sleep, versus having to kind of use caffeine as a crutch if you're not getting good sleep. Alcohol is also clinically shown to inhibit sleep cycles. So you might feel like alcohol might make you fall asleep more quickly when you first take it, but in fact, you're not going to be getting restful sleep if you are consuming alcohol, even just a single serving of alcohol before bed. This can really interfere with normal sleep cycles. So it's important to try to avoid that as much as possible. And the last one, kind of an odd one, but it is important for physical energy, is sleeping with your mouth closed. I know this is not possible for everyone, but if it is possible, if you're able to breathe through your nose, you want to try to consciously keep your mouth closed, not just while you're sleeping, but all the time. Breathing in and out through your nose really helps promote better energy in your body. So those are some sleep tips that I hope are helpful for you. Okay, and the last energy item I want to discuss before we get into a few products from Unicity is caffeine. So I think most adults are familiar with caffeine. A lot of us rely on it to kind of get up and wake up and get going in the morning. But caffeine is found naturally in the leaves, seeds, and fruits of many plants. So coffee, cocoa beans, cola nuts, and tea leaves, all of these naturally contain caffeine. But it can also be synthetically produced and added to things. So if you're getting it from maybe a standard energy drink at the store, that probably has synthetic caffeine that's been added to the product. Now, we mentioned caffeine is considered a stimulant. So it's not physical energy for your body in the form of ATP, but it acts on receptors in the brain. And I think it was Shalene talked about the adenosine receptor and how caffeine works with that. So if you want a little bit more detail on that, you can go back to her talk, I think just from last week. But that is how caffeine works. It basically competes for the adenosine receptor. And adenosine is a molecule that kind of makes us feel tired, makes you feel sleepy. So if caffeine is binding to that receptor instead of adenosine, then you're going to feel the opposite. You're going to feel more stimulated and alert. So this can be a great tool, caffeine, to increase your alertness. It boosts your mood and your focus when used correctly. But we want to be conscious both of how much of it we're consuming and the timing of that. So studies suggest that healthy adults can consume up to 400 milligrams of caffeine a day. And this is actually quite a lot, 400 milligrams. I'm not saying everybody needs 400. It's quite individual how much you need for your body. So please don't go out and take 400 milligrams of caffeine after this if that's not what you normally do. You kind of have to find out what works best for your body. But we want to try to be staying below that 400 number for sure. Another thing important about caffeine and the timing is the half-life of caffeine is about 5 hours. And what that means is it takes your body about 5 hours to metabolize half of the caffeine that you consume. So if you consume 100 milligrams of caffeine at 8 a.m., 5 hours later, so that would be 1300 or 1 p.m., you would still have about half of that caffeine left in your system. So think about that in terms of when you should have your last dose of caffeine. If half of it's still going to be there in 5 hours, you really don't want to be having much caffeine after about 2 p.m. or 1400 hours. And then, let's see, anything I haven't touched on here? Too much caffeine. So we said we want to stay below that 400 amount. You also don't want to be taking that all at one time. So if let's say you are taking, your number is 300 milligrams is your ideal amount of caffeine. You don't want that 300 milligrams in a single serving in like a 30-minute beverage. You want to kind of try to spread it out over the hours that you're consuming caffeine. So if you're consuming 300, maybe you have a cup of coffee, or we'll talk about Unimate and some of the matcha products. Maybe you have that at 8 a.m. You wait a little bit of time, you have a second cup a little bit later, and maybe if you're still needing that little boost, you have a third serving before the 2 p.m. cutoff. So that's a way that you can kind of preserve that stimulation from caffeine, but without getting some of these symptoms of too much caffeine, which can be anxiety, overstimulation, irritability, elevated heart rate, things like that. So today I want to focus on these 3 products. We're mainly going to talk about Unimate, but Unicities energy line includes matcha products as well. So these are BioSlife E and Matcha X, and I'm going to be talking about kind of how the small differences between each of these, and how you can use all of them, any and all of them, to optimize your energy. So let's start with Matcha X, which is really formulated for people who are looking to support their metabolism, maybe people on a weight loss plan. And that's because the key ingredients that we formulated with in Matcha X promote a healthy metabolism to kind of promote the fat burning mechanisms of your body. And these are ingredients like green and black tea extracts. The green tea in this does provide about as much caffeine as a cup of coffee. So caffeine varies in a cup of coffee. It depends on the coffee beans, how they're processed, and how much you're drinking, right? If you're brewing a cup at home versus maybe going to a coffee shop, It's going to vary, but on average, we say a decent cup of coffee, a quality cup of coffee has about 100 milligrams. And that's about what you're getting with these energy products as well from Unicity. So it can vary a little bit. Some might be closer to 80 to 90, but 100 is a good number to remember. So you're getting that in this Matcha X product. And then we also combined several metabolic boosting ingredients like Panax ginseng, African mango seed extract, and cayenne pepper. So here's where you're going to get that, what we call a thermogenic effect. These are things that just kind of boost your body's, rev your metabolism, if you will. And we also included 4 grams of fiber. So who doesn't need more fiber? Most of us do. And this can also help with those weight management efforts. Getting enough protein is important for satiety, but fiber is also really important for helping you stay full between meals. And so Matcha X can help with that as well. Lastly, we included L-Carnitine, which is a molecule that's shown here. It's made from 2 amino acids, so those building blocks of protein. And the function of L-Carnitine is to basically help shuttle fat from outside your cells, so the cytosol, into what we call your mitochondria. And mitochondria really drive the metabolism of your cell. So we call it the powerhouse of the cell. And so this molecule, L-Carnitine, helps transfer fat into the mitochondria to be metabolized and produce energy. So this is just another way this product really helps support healthy metabolism. And so if you're looking for a product with both energy and that metabolic boost, Matcha X is a really great choice. And we do have both an AM version that has more caffeine and a PM version that has most of the caffeine removed, although it still will have some naturally occurring caffeine in the PM as well. Okay, the next product I want to talk about is BIOS Life E. So BIOS Life E is not an energy drink in the traditional sense. I assume, depending on your country, that you have products like Red Bull or Monster Energy or some of these typical energy drinks that are just loaded with hundreds of milligrams of caffeine and other perhaps unnatural things and sugar. So BIOS Life E is not any of those things. Instead, I want you to think of this as a metabolic health beverage, really providing energy at a cellular level. So remember, we talked about that physical energy having, providing your body with ATP. This is what we're thinking of when we think of BIOS Life E. So both Matcha X and BIOS Life E contain matcha green tea. So we have a special blend that's unique to Unicity. It's called Chi-Oka Matcha Green Tea. And this is crafted in Japan, and it's some of the highest quality matcha green tea around. We actually have a research institute where we do research on matcha and other botanicals. And this is just a really unique factor of the matcha products that we have at Unicity. It's very, very high quality. So I will note that BIOS Life E, the first ingredient in BIOS Life E is matcha green tea. Whereas for the previous one, for Matcha X, green tea extract is the first ingredient. So slightly different on how much matcha you're getting. If you have a preference for that, BIOS Life E is going to be the one that's higher in actual matcha. But it also has a lot of B vitamins in BIOS Life E. So if you recall, the B vitamins are part of that list of nutrients that helps convert food to energy. So these are really important for allowing your body to take the food that you've eaten and convert it to useful energy. So B vitamins are included here in BIOS Life E for that purpose. We also have green tea in both products, but green tea contains a phytochemical called EGCG. And this is what's known as a tea catechin. It's a polyphenol or antioxidant. And unfortunately, we don't have time to go into all the details of antioxidants today, but in short, antioxidants are really, really good for your body. And you want to be trying to get as many of them as you can. We have them in almost every Unicity product has some form of antioxidant, whether it's vitamin E or C or vitamin A or polyphenols from all of these plant sources that we include. But your natural metabolism, just the act of metabolizing food, creates these byproducts called free radicals. And free radicals can be harmful to your cells. They can damage your cells. And if you have excessive free radical production, this can lead to a state that we call oxidative stress. And oxidative stress has been implicated in a lot of disease states. Like I said, we're not going to disease states today, but just know that antioxidants are really good for you. EGCG is one of those molecules that has these antioxidant properties. So it is going to protect your cells from free radical damage. And the more we can do that, the more we lower and suppress oxidative stress that happens from just living our everyday lives. Okay. We mentioned L-Carnitine with Matcha X, and Bios Life E also contains that L-Carnitine, which is going to help shuttle fat into the mitochondria to be metabolized. So Bios Life E, that combination of the B vitamins, the antioxidants, the L-Carnitine, these are all things that are helping provide energy for your body on a cellular level. And EGCG is a really interesting molecule. If you have some time, you can go just Google EGCG and effects on metabolism, and you'll find all kinds of research. But it's really been implicated in healthy cholesterol levels, healthy fat metabolism, and promoting overall health. So this, the combination, like I said, with B vitamins and L-Carnitine really help provide healthy energy to your body at that cellular level. And one thing I like about Bios Life E is that you don't feel jittery when you take it. Unlike traditional energy drinks that we talked about that have a lot of caffeine and too much sugar, Bios Life E, it leaves you feeling energized, but also nourished and not jittery. Okay. The last product I want to talk about today is Unimate. So if we think of Bios Life E in terms of that cellular energy, how is Unimate different? Well, Unimate is based on this herb called yerba mate. This has been traditionally consumed for centuries in central and southern regions of South America because the people that have been consuming it understand that it has really powerful mental and physical health benefits. So this picture kind of shows how it's traditionally consumed. It's consumed in a gourd, and it has this special filtering straw that's called a bombilla. And it's kind of it's more of a tradition and a custom where this is shared amongst friends and conversation. It's kind of a ritual. So we knew that a lot of people had recognized the benefits of yerba mate for a long time, but it really didn't have popularity worldwide. So at Unicity, we recognized this potential and we wanted to bring a product that was based in yerba mate to more people. So I mentioned that yerba mate is the main ingredient. We use a very specialized extract from premium yerba mate leaves that are grown in South America in their native region and then undergo this special process to optimize the benefits. So like I said, our leaves are handpicked in South America and then they're shipped to Europe. And I know, I think at some point, the marketing material used to say it was extracted in Switzerland, which is true, but now the company that helps us extract this yerba mate has facilities all over Europe. And so the yerba mate goes to Europe to one of these high-tech facilities where it is extracted to isolate these key components of yerba mate that are important for its benefits. and then it's concentrated down to make it even more potent. And then the really cool step out of all of this is the last step, it's purification. And this is a proprietary process of purification that has been shown, and it was patented actually, to show that it removes impurities like pesticides and chemicals like PAHs from the final product. So what we're left with is an incredibly pure and concentrated yerba mate extract that forms the basis of our Unimate product. So what are the components that we enrich in this extract? Well, it's these 4 important things. So caffeine, we've already talked about caffeine today. Unimate is the extract is enriched in caffeine, provides about the same amount of caffeine as that high quality cup of coffee. So 80 to 100 milligrams, but for ours, it's usually closer to the 100 milligram level. We also isolate chlorogenic acids, which we'll talk about a little bit next, and how important these are in the effects that you'll experience from Unimate. And then 2 other compounds, theobromine and triterpene saponins. So theobromine is what's considered the feel-good component of chocolate. So when you have a piece of chocolate and you feel good after eating it, that is from this compound theobromine, which is highly enriched in our yerba mate. And then lastly, the triterpene saponins, these have been shown to influence obesity-related gene expression. So we noted that there's physical and mental benefits of Unimate. Well, the triterpene saponins are believed to be what's driving that weight management effect that we see from Unimate. So of those 4 key components, I think the most important one here in our extract are the chlorogenic acids. So chlorogenic acids are phytochemicals, which are biologically active compounds found in plants. And chlorogenic acid is found in coffee. So much like caffeine, the chlorogenic acid that we have in yerba mate is also found in coffee, but we have a much higher level in Unimate of chlorogenic acids than is naturally found in coffee. So there's been a ton of research. Again, if you have time, you can go Google chlorogenic acid and metabolism or chlorogenic acid and brain benefits, and you'll find a lot of research available on that. But here are just a few areas of research that are showing the benefits of chlorogenic acid. So these include things like neuroprotection, protecting the neurons in your brain because they have such high antioxidant activity, which we talked about, that can be very protective, preventing free radical damage to your cells. Chlorogenic acids also support feelings of well-being. So you'll notice if you start to take Unimate, it's not just a mood boost that you're going to feel from the caffeine, but there's some other component that's kind of hard to describe of just this feeling that you get. And that's probably both from the chlorogenic acids and that feel-good compound we talked about, theobromine. So it's the synergy of all of those compounds that we're concentrating in Unimate that have these effects. Chlorogenic acids have also been shown to promote healthy blood pressure and glucose levels and contribute to weight management as well. So here I just show a few of those research papers, but like I said, please do some extra research if you're interested in exploring that more. So this slide summarizes the features and benefits that we've covered of Unimate. So they're truly extensive, from supporting that overall well-being to cognitive function, endurance and stamina, that energy that you'll feel. And it really can help provide some good appetite support and weight management. So we talked about protein and fiber helping keep you satiated between meals. You'll also feel a benefit to appetite support from Unimate. We mentioned those key components: chlorogenic acids, theobromine, the triterpene saponins, and caffeine. And then lastly, you'll notice an Informed Sport logo on Unimate as well. So this is an independent certification program that basically tests supplements for commonly banned substances. So it's a measure of quality, and we have had that logo put on Unimate to help ensure that we're keeping it to the highest quality standards. And then lastly, I know it's been mentioned that this is a Genocidal Formula. And basically what that means is it's a trademark owned by Unicity that refers to products that contain plant-based ingredients that have been shown to positively affect gene expression. So in the case of Unimate, both the triterpene saponins, I mentioned those have been implicated in obesity-related gene expression, and the chlorogenic acids also have evidence of positively influencing gene expression in the body. Okay, so here are just a few testimonials of things that people say after drinking Unimate. And I don't have a lot of time to tell you my story and my testimonial. I have a very personal story with Unimate, which is why I love it. But I will tell you briefly that when I started at Unicity, which was just last August, I had only been here a short period of time, about 2 weeks, when my mom passed away. And I had already started taking Unimate, but I was going through this grieving process, right? I still am, but I was taking Unimate every day. And actually I combine Unimate with Life E, and that's my morning drink. And I drink it actually with quite a bit of water and over an extended period of time. But I feel like on the days where I didn't have a lot of willpower, where I didn't really want to get up and go to work, drinking this combination, it just kind of helped me have that willpower. It helped me just be able to like function on days when I didn't really want to function. So it's a pretty personal product for me. I have a lot of passion behind it, but I really hope if you have not tried it, that you will try it for yourself and just experience the benefits, because it is hard to describe to people in words. You kind of just, it's an experiential product. So if you haven't tried it, like I said, I hope you will give it a shot. Okay, to review what we've talked about on physical energy. There's so many factors that can contribute to our physical energy. The main drivers being what we put into our bodies, our nutrition, our physical activity, and our sleep patterns. And then we can use things like stimulants, like caffeine, like theobromine, to complement those other good habits that we're keeping to improve our physical energy. And also using products like Unimate that have been shown to have these chlorogenic acids that have mental health benefits to keep our stress levels down, which is also going to reduce that chronic stress, which again, over time we found can decrease our physical energy. And then importantly, and then just as a lecture, to be thinking about your screen time, especially right before you go to bed, and trying to limit that as much as you can. So to summarize the 3 energy products that we talked about in the Unicity line today, we have Matcha X, which is, they're all 3 energy, right? They're all 3 going to give you that caffeine, but in slightly different ways. So if you're looking for to support weight loss, metabolism, then you want to consider Matcha X for its ingredients there. For kind of the cellular or physical energy levels, Life E is a great product. And then Unimate, you'll get that stimulant effect as well, but it's really more about cognitive and mental energy. And that's one reason why I combine those 2 in the morning. So I get both kind of the physical energy boost and the mental energy boost by combining Life E and matcha. It's really awesome combination, but you could also do that with any of those 3. But like I said, you don't want to be getting all of that caffeine at one time. You want to maybe kind of sip it slowly over an hour or 2 to getting a nice extended release of that caffeine. So that is all I have for you guys today. I think hopefully we have time for some questions.
Wow, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Erin. We have heard so much about this product over the last few sessions, and We are still learning today. So everybody, right now we are opening for any of you. If you have any questions, please type in right now. Dr. Erin should be able to answer at least 5 questions, I suppose.
Great.
Do we have any question? Dr. Erin, there is a popular question that one of our leader is always curious and would like to get your confirmation. Is Unimate safe or safe with any temperature water, whether it's hot or warm, or room temperature or cold? Is the efficacy the same?
Yeah, so Unimate is a little bit unique compared to the matcha products because there aren't a lot of other added ingredients. It's mostly just our yerba mate extract. And so, yes, it is okay to use it with perhaps warmer, hotter water than I would use with the matcha products, because you're not going to be influencing any of those other ingredients. However, the chlorogenic acids may be influenced by heat a little bit, but they can withstand relatively high temperatures. So I would just say, as long as it's not boiling when you put the powder in, it's probably fine. So, you know, just below boiling, so very hot water will be good.
All right. We have a question from Suli. Why is there no caffeine crash with Unimate and BioSlife E?
Yes. Okay, well, so I will answer the BioSlife E first. BioSlife E contains an ingredient, and I meant to talk about it actually, and I didn't touch on it, but called L-theanine. And L-theanine is an amino acid that it kind of counteracts caffeine a little bit. It gives you like a mental alertness, but also a calmness at the same time. And so it's been shown that if you combine L-theanine with caffeine, that you kind of smooth out the effects of caffeine. So that is for BioSlife E. Unimate, we don't add L-theanine. There might be some naturally occurring. I'm actually not 100% sure. I don't know that we've tested if there is, but the Unimate itself, just the way that the plant is naturally, that combination of the chlorogenic acids and the theobromine, I think, are really what allow you to have the energy without the crash. Unfortunately, I don't have any studies to support that theory, but I do believe it's the synergy of those key compounds in Unimate that are helping provide the stimulation, but without that crash. And another reason is probably the amount of caffeine. It is only about 100 milligrams. So unlike energy drinks that might contain 150, 200 milligrams, you're not getting as much. So that will help you avoid the crash as well.
Okay. Next, we have from Jun An. Is Unimate sports certified?
So there are different certifications in different countries. So I mentioned that we do have a certification called Informed Choice. I would say if you are a professional athlete and you are very concerned about not having any banned substances, this product is tested for those, but each country and each sport has their own list of banned substances, right? So yes, sports, like a lot of people take it before competitions, before exercising, because it provides that boost. If you're competing in a sport where you will be drug tested or tested for banned substances, we can't guarantee that it will cover your specific sport or your country, but it has been tested and shown to be clear of at least the banned substances that are on the website. And I think maybe a frequently asked question or some website has information on that, but Informed Choice is the body that does that. So you could look at their website.
All right. Does Matcha X break the fast? From Roxanne, Philippines.
So this is a question that we get a lot for kind of all of our energy products. And I would say, you know, it kind of depends on how you're consuming it.
Okay.
The calories are still pretty low in that. So I would say no, and especially if you're drinking it over maybe a 30-minute period, you're not going to be breaking the fast. If you're somebody who likes to just put it in a small amount of water and chug it, you might get a little bit of a change in your glucose or insulin levels. But no, for the most part, I don't think that these products are going to be breaking your fast. And in fact, so I drink that combination of Unimate and Bios Life E every morning, and I basically fast until lunchtime. I'm following 4-4-12 that we also promote, but extending it a little bit longer. And no, I don't believe that this is breaking my fast during that time.
Okay, thank you. We are getting a lot more questions now.
Okay. I have time if you have time.
Right, I'm quite sure they all have time. All right, from Amy, at what age can we get our children to start taking all these 3 products?
Okay, you know, that is really not a question that I feel like I should answer as a scientist. You know, parents can make that decision for their children. We don't generally recommend our products for children. They're formulated for adults, and these do have relatively high amounts of caffeine, especially for a child. So right. I would say talk to their doctor or your healthcare professional about that. Yeah.
Okay. Does that apply to teenagers also, you would say?
You know, if you're, I know teenagers drink coffee and sodas right. and things like that. I wouldn't, there's no reason that it shouldn't be safe for them to take these, but I do think you certainly want to talk to the doctor and also maybe start with a smaller amount so that they're not getting such a large dose of caffeine at once, especially if they're not used to that.
All right. How should we take the Matcha X afternoon after PM after Matcha X AM at 7 a.m. because we need to wait 12 hours to take Matcha X PM?
I'm guessing that the 12 hours maybe has been recommended before because of the fat burning effect. So you're getting kind of that 24-hour effect if you separate it by 12 hours. I don't think it has to be exactly 12 hours.
Okay.
You can take the PM just probably any time from dinner until you go to bed would be fine.
For those who has high blood pressure, can they take Bios E?
Okay, so I really don't like to get into disease states and things like medical conditions because every person is different, right? I don't know your particular condition. We always say talk to your doctor, show them the label. I think you can provide some product profile sheets for them to take and have that discussion. So caffeine can increase blood pressure, right? So if that is a concern, I think you just want to be mindful of that and just go with your doctor's recommendations. If they say that caffeine is okay, then most likely Bios Life E would also be fine.
Okay. Next, caffeine will increase heart rate of athletes. Should Bios E be recommended for use, or it's better to use Unimate to improve sports performance?
So caffeine has been shown to be a performance enhancer, no matter where you're getting it from. And both of those products contain about the same amount of caffeine. However, Unimate specifically has some extra benefits for stamina and endurance. So if between the two, I would recommend Unimate for sports performance, but either would give you that caffeine boost, which improves your sports performance.
Okay. Is the yerba mate in Unimate feel good enough as compared to the pure Unimate by itself?
So it's the same. It's the same extract that we use in both products. So yes, however, in Unimate fuel, it's a little bit less. It's about 2/3 the amount that's in our regular Unimate. And that's because it's also combined with the MCTs for energy in Unimate fuel. So it's a little bit less of an amount that you're getting in Unimate fuel because you're also getting energy from the MCTs. But it's the same extract in both.
Okay. Last question for the day. What's the maximum number of sachet of Unimate can we take in a day? And Bios Life E.
Well, if you ask some of the owners, I know they take many, many servings of Unimate a day. You know, I would not say more than 2 personally. I think 3 maximum. And it's more based on the caffeine amount. So we mentioned that 400 milligram kind of is the maximal amount that you want to get in a day. So I would base it on that more than how many of each of these per day. But we don't put a limit on it. I think that's just personal preference.
Okay. Last, we have does Unimate helps to create ketone bodies in a fasted state?
Yeah, so I am not sure if anybody that's on here was around when Dr. Bickman used to do some presentations on this. So he helped complete a small study that did show taking Unimate was able to increase ketone levels in a fasted state. So I would say from the evidence that we have, yes, but it was a small study. I would like to see us repeat that with like a larger sample size, but we do have some evidence that that is true, yes.
Okay, no more questions. Thank you, doctor. Thank you for your time today. Thank you, everybody, for your time today. If there is any more question, you can always email to our usual hotline to attention to Claudia, and we can always ask Claudia to forward to Dr. Erin Glynn.
Yes, thank you so much for having me this evening.
Thank you, doctor. Good night, everybody.